I don't know what drove me to buy that house. Maybe it was the price, too good to be true. Maybe it was the silence of the town, a place where time curled in on itself like a dead spider. Or maybe it was the house's isolation, perched at the edge of an ancient wood, far enough from anyone to scream freely. The realtor never mentioned the previous owner, and I didn't ask. I liked the idea of not knowing. Some things are better buried. The first night passed without incident, aside from the wind, a long, unbroken moan that seeped through the floorboards like breath. I chalked it up to the age of the place. But the second night, that's when I found the diary. It was under a loose plank in the bedroom, bound in rotting leather, the cover tacky with what I hoped was mildew. It opened with a sick crack, and the pages were yellowed, curling like old skin. The ink was red, not brown with age red. Too red. The entries began mundanely. The writer, Anna, I think, spoke of loneliness, of voices in the walls and dreams that bled into waking. But the tone shifted quickly. Her words became erratic, ink sprayed in wild arcs. She wrote of him, the man behind the mirror, the whispers in the drain, the blood in the walls that laughed when she tried to scrub it clean. I would have thrown the diary away. I should have. But something about it, maybe the handwriting that looked like mine, or the fact that every time I put it down, it seemed to move, kept pulling me back. By the fourth night, I was hearing things too. It started with soft scratching under the bed. Then laughter, quiet, breathy, like a child hiding a knife behind its back. When I finally dared look under, there was nothing. Nothing but drag marks in the dust. Something had moved, crawled, slithered. I tried to sleep, but I kept waking with blood under my nails. Not cuts, nothing broken, but fresh, slick blood still warm. I started locking the bedroom door, though I was the only one in the house. Or so I thought. The mirror was the worst. It began fogging up even when I didn't shower. Then came the handprints, small, clawed. Then words spelled backward on the glass in dripping red. Do you remember me? I didn't. But something deep inside me did. I began losing time, hours then days. The diary filled itself during my blackouts. I would wake with a sore hand and find new entries I didn't recall writing, the ink still glistening. They told stories of hunting, of red-soaked nights, of digging up graves just to lie in them and whisper to the bones. One entry chilled me beyond anything else. He's inside now, wearing your face. Soon you'll be the whisper, and he'll be the scream. I tried to burn the book. It didn't burn. The flames curled around it like reverent hands, and then died out. The leather sizzled and hissed, but it remained unscathed, mocking me with its silence. That night, I woke to find the walls bleeding. Not metaphorically. Blood, thick, congealed, oozed from every crack, pooling on the floor, seeping into the wood like wine into a drunk. I screamed, but the sound died in my throat. The house swallowed it, fed on it. The mirror was covered in handprints now. Too many to count. They beat against the glass from the inside. Then came the knock at the front door. I don't know why I answered it. The thing standing there wore my face, but not quite. The eyes were wrong, too dark, too still. Like puddles of oil, its smile was mine, but wider, hungrier. It stepped inside without being invited. You left me behind, it said, voice like rusted nails dragged across glass. You locked me away. I ran. I don't remember how far. The woods were colder than I remembered, the trees too tall, too thin, reaching down instead of up. And now here I am, huddled in some abandoned barn, writing this. But here's the thing, I don't remember writing it. I look at these words, and they're mine. But they aren't. The ink is still red. I haven't been injured. Yet here it is, fresh, still warm. Something inside me is laughing, and the mirror in the corner just smiled back. I haven't slept in 3 days. Maybe more. Time peels away like dead skin now, useless and weightless. Every time I blink, I see it. The face, mine, but not mine, staring from every surface that holds a reflection. Eyes black as ruptured pupils, mouth curved in a smile wide enough to tear. And always that sound, drip, drip, drip. I don't know where it's coming from anymore. Ceiling, floor, inside me? The diary is still with me. I tried to toss it in a river on the second night here, but when I returned to the barn, it was waiting, open to a new page, written something darker than ink. You're not running, you're circling. That's what it said, just that. No name, no date, just a promise. I've started hearing voices now, layered and overlapping like a broken recording. Mine, Anna's, others I don't recognize. Whispers and sobs, screams pitched low so they hum under my skin. Tried to plug my ears once, shoved wadded cloth so deep I tore something, but it didn't help. The sounds were inside me. Last night, the mirror in the barn cracked on its own. I wasn't even looking at it, but the sound, like a scream caught in glass, made me turn. It hadn't shattered, it had opened. A thin slit from top to bottom, like a surgical wound. From it, something peeked out. Just an eye at first, watching, slow blinking, wet. Then fingers, long and raw, like skinned things that had never known sun. They tapped the glass once, twice. I blinked, and it was gone. But the blood on the floor wasn't mine. And it was fresh. I think I killed someone. No, I know I did. There was a man's face in the dirt this morning, half buried near the barn wall. Mouth frozen in a scream, his eyes gone, sockets packed with pages torn from the diary. The red handwriting crawled up his cheeks like veins. Don't remember doing it, but my hands, my nails are cracked now, black underneath. My palms raw, like I've been digging for hours. What's worse, there's no grave, just his face, and laughter, low and distant, but close enough to feel. I left the barn tonight. I needed answers. Or silence. I got neither. I wandered through the woods, the diary under one arm like a cursed child. The trees seemed to lean in, hissing leaves like teeth clacking in the dark. At some point, I found the house again. Not a house, the house, the one I thought I'd left behind. It was waiting for me, lights on. Windows open, blood dripping from the eaves like melted wax. Inside, the furniture was gone. The floors were lined with mirrors, some whole, some cracked. Each one showed a different version of me. Smiling, screaming, bleeding. One just stared, eyes weeping ink. The diary vibrated in my hands. I dropped it, and the pages flew open on their own. This time the words were carved in. You were always here. You never left. That's when I saw her, Anna, standing in the mirror across from me, pale, eyes sewn shut, mouth open in a silent scream. She raised her hand, and so did I, but I wasn't in control anymore. Something else was using me like a puppet. My mouth smiled, my hand reached out, and the glass cracked. It didn't break. It opened again, this time wider, and he stepped out. He wasn't a man. Not really, not anymore. Just bone and shadow stitched with faces. I saw mine among them, and Anna's, and others, some still twitching, mouthing prayers no God would hear. He stepped toward me. I didn't run, couldn't. He whispered something I didn't understand, but my soul did. It shivered like a dying thing. My knees buckled. He reached out, touched my forehead with one crooked finger, and whispered, "Now remember, I woke up here in this house again. But it's before the blood, before the diary. The realtor just left. She said, it's all yours. Nobody's lived here since Anna. And now, under the bed, I hear scratching. The diary is waiting. Its pages are blank. For now, but not for long, because I remember now. I always remember. And this time, I'm the one who writes. The Crimson Diary, Part 3, Ink of the Living. The diary watches me now. That's not a metaphor. It has an eye. A single bloodshot orb on the front cover. I don't know when it appeared. Maybe it was always there, and I just wasn't ready to see it. But last night, as I sat in the cold, flickering glow of a single candle, I saw it blink. It wasn't fast, just a long, slow, wet blink like it was savoring something. Me, probably. The eye doesn't follow me, it looks into me. Since I woke back in the house, time has grown soft again, like meat gone too long in the sun. I don't know if it's been hours or weeks. All I know is the smell of iron is stronger now, and the walls, oh God, the walls breathe. I can hear them at night, the thump of a heartbeat in the drywall, the wheeze of old lungs in the plumbing. I've taken to sleeping in the bathtub, not because it's safe, but because it's the only place where the house whispers less. Last night I dreamed I was the diary, not holding it, being it. Pages torn, ink bubbling like blood from open wounds. People bent over me, hands shaking, eyes wide with the terror of revelation. They wrote their sins into me, and when they were done, they vanished into the paper, into me. I felt them struggling, still alive, still screaming. When I woke, I could taste them. Today, I saw her again, Anna. Not in the mirror this time, in the hallway. Standing just beyond the edge of the light, her hair hanging like rotted curtains, soaked in red. She didn't move, just stood there, twitching slightly, like a puppet waiting for a string. Her eyes were still sewn shut, but she knew I was watching. When I took a step toward her, she opened her mouth, and the sound that came out was my voice. She said, "We're the ink now," and then she collapsed into a pile of pages, all blank, all warm. The diary was heavier after that. I opened it to find a new entry I hadn't written. "You're becoming." No signature, no date. Just those two words, but I felt them. They weren't a warning, they were a welcome. Tonight, the house changed again. Doors where there weren't any before. Stairs that led down but never came up. I counted the steps, 47 down. No matter how far I walked, I always counted 47. At the bottom was a room, small, circular. The walls pulsed like muscle. At the center, a chair, and on it me. No, not me, something in my shape. Skin too tight, eyes all pupil. Grinning. It was writing in the diary. I watched its hand move, bone thin, soaked in red. The tip of the finger split open like a quill. Blood splashed the pages. It looked up at me and spoke in my voice. "You were the author. Now you're the ink." I tried to run. I did, but my legs didn't work. My skin itched, no, peeled, as if something inside me wanted out. I looked down and saw words spreading across my arms, crawling from shoulder to fingertip in that same red script. He remembers. He forgives nothing. He wears your face, I screamed. The version of me in the chair just kept writing. Faster, more fevered. Each stroke burned in my flesh, and then everything went black. I woke up just now. Candle burned out. Hair wet with rot. I'm back in the tub. The diary sits on my chest like a weight. My arms are covered in writing, familiar, but ever shifting. I flipped to the last page. It was still being written. I watched, helpless as new words carved themselves onto the paper. This is the part where you accept it, where you stop running, where you become the next writer. And underneath that, in fresh, slick blood, write. And I did. I'm doing it now. I don't remember starting. But the diary is open, and the ink flows. And the eye on the cover won't stop watching. But now, when it blinks, I blink too. I don't know how long I've been writing now. My fingers are numb. Or maybe they've fused with the pen, or the bone I'm using as a pen. I think it was mine once. A piece of rib? No, longer, more curved. I don't remember pulling it out, but the hole in my side still leaks. The diary is almost full. The eye on the cover no longer blinks. It stares unbroken, unblinking, as if I've passed some test I didn't know I was taking. The house is gone, not physically. I mean, its disguise is gone. The walls are slick with flesh. The ceiling breathes in shallow rhythms. The floor pulses with veins. The lights are bioluminescent organs dangling from cords of sinew. I walk barefoot through hallways made of mouths. They murmur prayers in languages no human tongue could form. And worst of all, I understand them now. They chant a name over and over. Thrin Vassal. I don't know what it means, but it feels like mine. Or soon will be. Something new happened last night. I found a mirror again, not hanging. Grown, like a tumor of silver in the wall. And this time I saw everything. Not just a reflection of memory. Me, standing in the woods, older, covered in blood not my own, dragging something heavy. A body, fresh, twitching, Anna's body, but she wasn't dead yet. She was whispering, even through the blood in her throat. Please, don't write it down. Please. And I smiled, a smile I don't remember wearing. I bent down, opened the diary, and wrote her name, her death, her ending. And the moment I did, she turned to ink, seeped through the soil, became part of the pages. Bound to the story, bound to me. The mirror cracked, and the voice returned. No longer behind the glass, now beside me, inside me. You've written them all. One more and the book is complete. I turned slowly. I don't know why I expected to see him again, the man wearing my face, the stitched together mockery. But there was no one, only my reflection, smiling. Then it whispered, mouth moving in time with mine. Write yourself. I fought it. God, I tried. I burned the pages. They laughed. I tore out my tongue. I still heard the voice. I gouged the eye from the cover. It wept. It thanked me. You see now, it said. Now you're ready. And the pages turned, by themselves, to the last blank leaf. The only one untouched. Waiting. For me. So I did it, just now. I wrote my name. Each letter carved in blood drawn from my own veins. And the moment I did, I felt it. The tearing. The release. 1,000 screams, muffled until now, rushed in. Names I had written, lives I had ended, each one howling through me, filling me, becoming me, and me becoming them. My skin unraveled, my mouth stretched. My eyes burned away, but I still saw, still see, because now I am no longer the writer. I am the book, a you, yes you, the one reading this. You've come so far, you've read my words. You understand them. The diary sees you. The eye is opening again. Do you hear it? That soft scratching under your bed? That whisper in the pipes? That faint, wet drip? Drip, drip? Don't worry, it's normal. It always starts that way. Soon you'll find it. You'll hold it. You'll write. And when the time comes, you'll write your name too, and I'll be waiting. On the other side of the page. Epilogue. The last page, it came in a box. No sender, no stamp, no return address. Just left at my doorstep on a fog-choked morning. The sky smeared gray like an old bruise. The package was small, rough, wrapped in what felt like damp parchment. A sickly smell clung to it, coppery and old, like something dead left too long in a warm room. I should have thrown it away. I really should have. But curiosity, that ancient disease, wormed its way in. Inside the box was a book, tattered, black, heavy. Its leather cover was dry and cracked, except for one thing, a single bloodshot eye. Dead center, closed. At first I laughed. I thought it was a prank, a Halloween prop someone dropped off late. I tossed it on the table, intending to forget it, but it moved during the night. I found it on my nightstand in the morning. Open to the first page, blank, except for one line. Someone has to finish the story. I don't remember reading the whole thing, but I must have, because now I know it. I feel it, all of it, the blood, the faces, the way the walls breathed, the way the ink screamed. In the last entry, it's still warm. Not dry, like it wants me to touch it. I don't know what's real anymore. I think I saw someone outside my window. A man. But he looked wrong. His smile was too wide. And he didn't blink. He just pointed to the book and mouthed the words, "Right, I haven't slept." The eye is open now and watching. And tonight, when the wind groans and the pipes begin to sing, and the shadows lengthen into claws. I think I'll write something. Just a little. Just a page. What harm could it do? It's only a story after all, isn't it? The end? Or the beginning? Depends who picks up the pen next. Kismet Road, mile 12. I live alone, with only the wind through the pines and the worn floorboards to mark the passage of time. You might think it's lonely, but the house has its own company. It's patient, it listens, it watches. I'm beginning to think it's biding its time. They said I was an artist. A painter, they said, with a gift for capturing light on canvas. That's how I spent those early nights, sweat-drenched and paint-splattered, creatures of oil and pigment on stretched linen. Then the dreams began, shades of crimson pooling across floors, dripping from ceilings, filling hollow eyes of faceless things. That's when I planted my brush down. And slowly I drifted away. Into the night, I returned to this house 2 summers ago. Inherited, cheap, too quiet. But there was something about its hush, like an invitation. Dare. The walls were bare, but they whispered. Do something. Change the silence. Better to paint over nothing than nothingness. Then came the tap. Top, top, top. It started above my bed at exactly 1:01 a.m. Every night, not wind, not flooring settling. Measured, patient, human-minded. 7 taps. Then silence. 7 heartbeats, I thought. But you don't hear your heartbeat in the dark. Once, I counted 8. I froze the moment I heard it. My duvet was soaked in sweat, my heart in my throat. Then the room exploded in color. Red blossom on white walls, blood blossoms. I left the bedroom. Downstairs, the hall mirror stood waiting. I hadn't put it anywhere permanent, just leaned it there temporarily. I never saw it in the day, heavy with shadow, but that night I did. In the glass, I pressed a handprint, red, slick, wet. Heartbeat. I froze. Then I saw movement behind me in the glass. A shaking shape, dark clothes. Face faint, smiling, and gone. I whirled around. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Only the antique lamp sputtering, then extinguished altogether. The fuse box blew. My flashlight beam trembled. The beam swept wide. Carpet, wallpaper. Old floorboards. No blood. Only breath I couldn't stop. I left the mirror. Rewind. It was dusty, dry. The next day I cleaned it. A small smear, maybe paint from cleaning. Or mud. But I swore I felt a shape under my fingertip. Warm. That night I found words scrawled across its fogged glass when I cracked open the bedroom window to quell the heat. The letters were fresh, dark. Feed me. No parentheses, no signature. Just that plea. My heart pounded. But I was drawn, like a moth. I sniffed toward the mirror. No odor, not wood nor varnish, only a faint. Salt. I shredded the message with my shirt cuff. Ink smudged. More words rose up. Give me more. I thought maybe it's no sleep, no food. I sometimes wake in my dreams with my tongue dry. Maybe I'm dehydrated, parched. I filled a shallow bowl with tap water, set it in the hall. Next morning, the bowl was empty. Cleaned, polished, smiling. Slick. I filled it again. And in the reflection of the water, I saw by my feet footprints shaped like blood-soaked socks. They formed, evaporated into the glassy surface, 7 prints. Heel, toe, odd, narrow, human-sized, always 7. What else comes in 7s? I stopped sleeping. Didn't need it. The eye came next. An eye formed on the mirror, round, deep red orb-like, with a pupil. It pulsed slowly, like a second heartbeat. It watched me. As I slept in a surreal half-dream the night before, I saw it open. Slowly, one dark tear rolled down the glass. I woke. The mirror shattered behind me with a crash. I backed away, gasping. Shards tinkled like prayers falling on stone. I thought I saw movement behind the broken pieces. A silhouette twisting its head, smiling. I left the shards there. Haven't cleaned. Can't. It got worse. One evening I came home from town carrying groceries. The house smelled like metal, acid. I looked at the tile floor by the back door. Red was pooling. Plasma, blood. It pooled, thick and syrupy. Touched it, it stuck like glue. It soaked in. It moved. Sometimes I'd see an eyelid blink or feel the corners of it twitch like lips. I threw baking soda on it. Nothing changed. The stain dissolved into dim red dust. The smell remained. I began tasting it. Just a little. A fingertip I'd dip in the puddle if no one watched. Warm, familiar, sweet. Like sap in spring, like memory in childhood. My tongue craved more. I stopped eating out of hunger. That night, I carved a small incision on my wrist, tested my own blood in the hall puddle. I saw ripples, blood met blood. The puddle gleamed in new life. I met someone, Noah, an old neighbor from down the road. Quiet, friendly, offered to lend a lamp. He came at dusk to check on me. I invited him in because, why not? We sat near the blood dust. He made a trembling noise. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said, "but it's not mine." He later called me 30 times. I smiled through tears. He looked dirty. When I woke the next morning, he was gone. His kitchen blade lay on my counter, and the blade had red smeared along its edge, mine wet. I screamed and dropped it. Sometime later, a damp pool collected by the door again. Thin, unnerving. I climbed into the attic, up steep planks behind the closet. Dark, cold, lingering. At the far wall I found a chalkboard, small, black slate, framed in mottled wood. On it, the word broken, scrawled twice. Under it, a shape. A figure in robes, red-veined eyes, a bowl at the base. Sevens etched into the bottom lip. I knocked the board loose. It fell. Sevens fell away inside the house. I panicked and fled downstairs. Something followed, not feet-foot. Something worse. I started carving words in my arms. Hungry 6th, 12. Then I bled and bled. The house breathed around me. Floorboards groaning, walls swelling, hungry echoing fractal through the ceiling. I slept finally, curled on the kitchen floor. Dreamed of 7 shapes, human-sized, shrouded, veiled. They held bowls, empty and waiting. I woke smelling iron. The 7 shapes stood before the tile pool. The blood puddle rippled. The tallest motioned. 1 bowl, 1 spoon, I obeyed them. I stirred. I took the bowl. Blood dripped off my fingers as I lifted it. I drank. The tiles cracked. A new color washed over the floor, darker, with flecks of something, human. This was not mine. I felt hands on my head. Cold, gentle, I choked on the warm, vivid taste. The bowls filled again. The 7 glided back into shadows. Only I, the artist-turned vessel, remained. I lost days, hours. I woke in the attic. Red dust on the board by my feet. The word feed typed, endless roiling dust. The blackboard gone. On my arms, more carving. Words, take me, another, all 7. Something inside me cracked open. My ribs hollow, my mouth grew dry. Mind hushed except for it, the voice. Not in floorboards now, inside my chest. Kismet, calling my name. I wept blood, a slow leak from the corners of my eyes and nose. Each sob it poured, they fed me. Innumerable voices merged. They are color, movement, suggestion. They tore my vision into flickers of red that dissolve into darkness. I became something, not human. The walls throb. The house's heartbeat matches mine, slow, rhythmic, 7. They showed me part of me, something I buried. In the closet floor, beneath a loose board, lies bones. Not animal, a boy's pelvis, small, child-sized. Under it, a scrap of paper, my name forgotten. Some nights I remember the name, then it bleeds away. I burned the scrap, heard a sigh, lonesome, hungry. Tonight, I write this on the bathroom mirror in my own blood. 7 words. I am hungry. They are here. The eye watches from broken glass behind me. I feel their breath on my neck. 7 of them. Soon they'll come for me. But first, they'll come through me. Final words, here ends my tale. Or maybe it begins anew. The bowl is waiting. The house hums with approach. I hear the taps above. 7. Always 7. Then silence. Then the tapping again. Drink the red. I remember the first time I saw the sign. It wasn't much, a worn piece of wood with white paint barely clinging to its letters. Brackmore Hollow, Pop 42. It stood tilted along a road no one used anymore, veiled in constant fog and lined with trees so gnarled they looked like frozen screams. I was driving to nowhere, fleeing everything. A breakup, a job that meant nothing, and a life that had turned beige and sour. I wasn't even sure how I ended up on that road. My phone's GPS had gone blank hours ago. Radio static replaced music. The sun, though it should have been rising, seemed stuck behind clouds that clung low and heavy. The fog thickened the moment I passed the sign, like it had been waiting. Brackmore Hollow wasn't on any map, not one I'd seen. And yet there it was. The town was a single street wrapped in silence. No cars, no people, just flickering lamplight that cast long, twitching shadows. I parked in front of a general store, its window fogged over from the inside. As I stepped out of the car, my breath curled in the air. I didn't remember it being so cold. A bell jingled when I pushed open the door. A wave of warmth hit me, and then a smell, something between cinnamon and rot. Behind the counter stood a man. Mid-50s maybe, with skin the color of wax and eyes like polished coal. "You're early," he said, smiling too wide. I hesitated. Early for what? He looked at a clock on the wall that ticked backward. Reckoning. I should have walked out. Gotten back in the car. Driven until the fog spat me out. But I didn't. I stayed, because something in me knew I had to. The man handed me a key, small brass and cold as bone. It had no tag, just a symbol etched into it, a circle with a line through it. "You'll stay at the Bell House," he said. "Last on the right. Is there a motel?" He shook his head. "Just the house." As I turned to leave, he added, "Don't answer the knock after midnight." I laughed awkwardly, but he didn't. "Even if it's you, especially if it's you." The Bell House was older than memory. 2 stories of gray timber and windows that stared without seeing. A wrought iron bell hung above the door, unmoving in the windless air. Inside, the floors groaned under every step. The wallpaper peeled like dead skin. Yet the air felt untouched, no dust, no decay. Like the house had been cleaned for a guest it had waited centuries to receive. A fire already burned in the hearth. Didn't question it. That night, the fog pressed hard against the windows. Outside, the town was lost in it. I tried to sleep, but the silence had weight, like a presence curled in the corner of the room. At 12:03 a.m. a knock came. 3 taps. I held my breath. The knock came again. 3 taps, soft, measured, familiar. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Nothing. No fog, no light. Just blackness so absolute it felt like falling. Then I heard my voice, on the other side of the door. "It's me, let me in." I backed away. My voice again. "Please, you don't know what's out here." It begged, cried, screamed. I locked the door and curled into a corner with a blanket pulled tight. The knocking continued until dawn. When the sun rose, if that dim silver glow could be called that, I opened the door. No one there, just a single handprint on the glass, smaller than mine. The townspeople appeared that morning. Silent, slow-moving figures with eyes like fogged glass. They stood at their doors, watching, not blinking. I wandered the main street. No one spoke, not until I reached the chapel at the far end of town. A woman in black stood outside, her veil covering her face. "You heard it, didn't you?" she asked. "Heard what?" She tilted her head. "Your echo, the part of you the hollow keeps." I laughed, bitter and raw. "What the hell is this place?" "It's the in-between," she said, "where the broken come to finish unraveling." That night, I tried to stay awake. Coffee, music, lights blazing. Didn't matter. At 12:03, the power died. The knock came again. But this time it didn't wait. The door creaked open on its own. My breath turned to ice. I grabbed the poker from the fireplace and stepped toward the hall. Shadows pooled at the edges. My voice whispered from the darkness. You were right to run, but now there's nowhere left. The shape in the hallway was me, but twisted. Taller. Thinner. Its eyes were hollow, and its smile carved too wide. I'm what you left behind, it said. I'm what you tried to forget. I swung the poker. It passed through the thing like smoke. We share a heart, it whispered. I fled into the fog. The town behind me shimmered and shifted. Roads led nowhere. Trees turned to faces. I ran until I saw the sign again. Brackmore Hollow, Pop 42. The number had changed. Now it read 43. I drove. No direction, just motion. The fog followed. Eventually, I hit pavement again. Sunlight broke through the clouds. The town, normal and bustling, rose in the distance. I wept. I checked my phone. GPS worked. Radio played. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, the road behind me was gone. Just an open field. No sign, no town. I moved on. New job. New city. New life. But every night, at exactly 12:03 a.m., I hear a knock. Always 3 taps. Sometimes it's on my apartment door. Sometimes on the window. 8th floor. I never answer. Not since the night I did and found no one there. Just a mirror. And my reflection smiling without me. My name is Joe. I moved to London in the autumn of a year I no longer clearly remember. The days were already shrinking, the air dense with drizzle, and the gray brickwork of the city seemed to absorb all warmth. I was 28, renting a narrow studio in a crumbling Georgian townhouse in Whitechapel. The landlady was never around, the neighbors were never seen, and the pipes sounded like they sighed in their sleep. I needed quiet. I had run from something, though I rarely admitted it aloud. It was easier to say I came for work, but I hadn't planned on the Hollow. The Hollow wasn't on any map. Not a district, not a street. Yet somehow I found myself there one night after wandering too long in the East End fog. I turned right instead of left, ended up on streets with names like Misery Mews and Cutter Lane. The fog was so thick I could barely see 5 feet ahead, but I kept going, drunk on loneliness and the gentle murmur of the city. Eventually I saw it. A narrow passage between 2 crumbling brick facades. No lights, no signs, just a sliver of darkness, so perfectly silent it felt like I'd stepped underwater. I should have turned back, but something in me whispered, go on. The Hollow was impossibly quiet. No traffic, no footsteps. Just old cobblestones underfoot and the smell of something damp and old, mildew and soot and something else, coppery and bitter. It stretched longer than seemed possible, curving gently downhill. The buildings were too tall, leaning in over the alley like they wanted to whisper to one another over my head. Their windows were either boarded or gone, jagged holes that breathed stale air. That's when I noticed there were no reflections. My own shadow followed me. Yet when I glanced into the windows or puddles, I saw nothing looking back. I passed a small shop with a warped wooden sign hanging above its door. Remembrance & Co. The window display featured odd trinkets, porcelain hands, cracked clocks, and a child's shoe half embedded in a block of wax. I felt pulled to it, but the door didn't budge. Instead, I kept walking until the alley opened into a small courtyard. At its center stood a tall iron clock tower. It had no hands, just a smooth face like a blind moon. Beneath it, someone had scrawled in white chalk, "Time isn't lost here, only stolen." That's when I heard the humming, a low, tuneless sound, like dozens of people murmuring to themselves just beneath hearing. I turned. The alley was gone. just smooth brick wall where it should have been. I was alone, except I wasn't. A figure stood beneath the clock, head bowed, dressed in black, tall, and impossibly thin, with hands that dangled too far down its sides. It raised its head slowly, no face, just skin stretched over where eyes and mouth should be. Yet somehow I knew it was looking at me. The humming stopped. The figure whispered, "You've been noticed." I ran. The courtyard was a labyrinth of narrow alleys now, each more crooked than the last. Windows blinked open in the walls as I passed, some with curtains parting just slightly. And every turn, the humming grew louder. Then I saw another sign etched into a stone arch. The Hollow remembers. I had no memory of the way I came. My phone was dead, the air too thick to breathe. I turned corner after corner, screaming for help. Nothing answered but the walls. Then a door appeared, just standing there, in the middle of an alley with no building attached. Painted red, brass knob. A note tacked to it, "Go back before you become." I opened it. Inside, my studio flat in Whitechapel. Same sagging mattress, same dead plant, same cracked kettle, but different. The light was wrong. Too dim, too yellow. The windows showed fog instead of the street. And someone was sleeping in my bed. Someone who looked exactly like me. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My voice was gone. The other me stirred, turned toward me, and its eyes opened. Solid black. No whites, no Edie's. "You shouldn't have looked," it whispered. Then it grinned, and I passed out. When I woke, I was lying on my floor. My phone buzzed nearby. The time blinking 4:03 a.m. rain pelted the window. London outside again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd brought something back. Every night since, the same humming starts just after midnight. Sometimes soft, sometimes so loud it rattles my teeth. And sometimes when I pass windows or mirrors, I don't see myself. I see the version that grinned at me. Its smile wider every time. I sought help, psychiatrists, spiritualists, even a man claiming to be a hollow cartographer. None believed me, but one gave me a name, Dr. Evelyn Cross, a historian who specialized in London's vanished neighborhoods. She listened quietly as I told my story. Then she showed me a photograph from 1894. A boy standing in front of a fogged alley. "That's the Hollow," she said. "It appears to those who fracture. Fracture when something inside tears. Memory, identity, soul." She handed me a mirror. "Tell me what you see." I raised it slowly. Nothing. No reflection. Dr. Cross offered a solution or a warning, depending how one looked at it. "You must return, face the echo, reclaim the peace you left behind. And if I don't, the Hollow comes. It always does, so I prepared." One night, with only a flashlight, the mirror, and a resolve I didn't truly feel, I returned to the passage between Misery Mews and Cutter Lane. It was waiting, open, darker than night. I stepped inside. The humming began instantly. The smell of old metal and sorrow filled my nostrils. But I kept walking, back to the shop, back to the courtyard, back to the red door. And there, beneath the clock, stood my reflection. No longer grinning, now weeping. "You left me," it whispered. "You made me carry it." I raised the mirror. It screamed. A sound like shattering glass and wind through crypts. Light burst from the mirror, enveloping both of us. And then silence. I woke in my flat. Truly meaning. No fog outside. No humming. Just rain and sirens, and the smell of overcooked toast from the neighbor's kitchen. I looked in the mirror. My eyes stared back, whole. But sometimes when the fog rolls thick over the Thames and I catch my reflection in a puddle, I see something behind me. Watching, waiting. The Hollow doesn't forget, and it never forgives. I never intended to become a monster. It started with a sound. A soft tap 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 on the attic ceiling at 3:12 a.m. every night. Not like mice, louder, intentional, rhythmic, like knuckles on wood. I used to lie in bed and count the taps. 7. Always 7. Then silence, like the house was holding its breath. It never scared me at first. I live alone. Rural town, one road in, one road out. I chalked it up to cold air, settling beams, old bones in the walls. Then came the whisper, the 8th night, just after the 7th tap, right above my bed. A voice, dry and patient, said, "I remember you." I didn't sleep again. I tried to tell myself it was a dream, a half-waking hallucination brought on by exhaustion or guilt, though I couldn't imagine what I felt guilty for. I was quiet, ordinary, barely spoke to neighbors, but the house disagreed, because the next night the voice moved closer, this time from under the floorboards. "I remember your hands." I didn't want to know what it meant, didn't want to ask, but the words took root. One morning, I woke to find the front door unlocked, and just inside it on the floor, a red handprint, too large to be mine, too fresh to be dust, too wet to be paint. I followed it barefoot, all the way to the bathroom mirror. There, written in the same sticky red, were 3 words. "Drink the red," I vomited. Ran outside, swore I'd leave, but my keys were gone. Phone dead. Every wire in the house snapped in half. Clean, like surgical cuts, like the house was tired of me trying to reach the outside. And part of me, some traitorous, whispering part, didn't want to leave anymore. Not really. Because that night when I cut my finger on a shard of glass, I tasted the blood, and it was sweet. They say blood is salty, metallic, sickening, but mine wasn't. Mine tasted like rain on scorched earth, like the first breath after near drowning, like home. I stood there for hours, licking the wound until it was raw. It didn't hurt, it hummed. The next day I went looking. I wanted more. I caught a rabbit in the woods. Its blood was bitter, wrong, not like mine. I threw it aside. Then I remembered the neighbor, old Mr. Halvers, frail, alone. I visited him for the first time in years. He didn't suspect a thing, just smiled and said, "You've grown so quiet, son." When I slit his throat, it didn't even feel violent. It felt necessary. His blood was close, closer than the rabbit. Warmer, but it wasn't like mine. Not sweet. I drank anyway. The voice in the floorboards laughed that night. Almost, I began to see changes. My skin no longer bruised. My teeth sharpened, not visibly, but I could feel it when I bit my tongue. My eyes adjusted in the dark, too well. I could see things I shouldn't have. I stopped eating. I stopped bathing. All I needed was red. And the more I drank, the more I remembered. I wasn't always quiet. I wasn't always kind. There was a boy once, years ago, screaming under the porch, a shovel in my hands, something writhing in the dirt. My mother's voice saying, "We don't speak of what we bury." Now the house speaks for her. I dug beneath the porch, found bones, small, child-sized. Not rabbit, not animal, mine. His, I don't know. I sat beside the hole all night. The wind whistled one word through the trees. Remember. Now the voice comes from inside me. It speaks when I blink. It speaks when I bleed. It wants me to drink. Always drink. Never stop. Never stop. And I don't want to stop. Last night I carved open my own thigh. Let the blood fill a bowl. It glowed in the candlelight. Pulsing, alive, I drank. And for the first time I saw him. The boy. Standing just beyond the door. No eyes, no mouth, just a long, gaping red line across his throat. He didn't blame me. He bowed and smiled and said, "You're ready now. The attic is open." The voice is louder. I've left the door unlocked. There's blood on the walls, and it isn't mine anymore. I feel the thing inside me stretching its limbs. I am no longer a man. I am thirst. I am memory. I am a wound that never closes. Come inside. You're thirsty, aren't you? Don't be afraid. Drink the red. The rain had been falling for hours, a persistent whisper against the roof that did nothing to calm the rising tension in my chest. I sat alone in the living room, the only light coming from the flickering screen of the television. Static. My reflection trembled in the black mirror of the blank screen. The power had cut out at some point, and yet the TV still buzzed softly, whispering nonsense into the room. It began with a knock, a single deliberate rap on the front door. Not urgent, not desperate, but unnervingly patient. I froze, eyes glued to the door as my breath caught in my throat. There was no one I was expecting. And who would be knocking in the middle of a storm like this? I waited. Another knock, then another. 3 in total, still slow, still deliberate. I stood up, every instinct telling me to ignore it, to turn off the lights, to hide. But something pulled me forward, as if on puppet strings, guiding me toward the door. I pressed my eye to the peephole, and there he was, a clown. Not the cheerful kind you'd see at a birthday party, but something darker. His makeup was smeared, running down his face like blood-stained tears. His eyes, God, his eyes were wide and unblinking, ringed in red as if he'd clawed at them. His mouth was stretched in an impossibly wide grin, teeth yellow and jagged. He wore a tattered suit, the kind you'd find in an old-timey circus, soaked with rain and stained with what I hoped was mud. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring directly into the peephole, grinning. I backed away, heart pounding, pulse echoing in my ears. I didn't know what to do. Call the police? But the power was out, my phone dead. The storm had knocked everything out. I couldn't even scream. My voice felt trapped somewhere deep inside. I turned to run, to get as far away from the door as I could when I heard it. Knock, knock. The voice came from inside. Inside the house, I spun around. Empty. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by lightning outside. My eyes searched the corners, every shadow now suspect, every creak of the house a threat. Then the laughter began, high-pitched, childlike, but wrong, distorted like it was playing on a warped record. It came from the basement. I hadn't been down there in years. I kept it locked for a reason. Old memories I didn't want to face. But the door was open now, wide open. I approached slowly, drawn to the sound like a moth to flame. The stairs creaked under my weight. Each step felt like a betrayal. The air grew colder, damper. The smell of mildew mixed with something fouler, iron, rot, decay. At the bottom of the stairs, I stopped. He was there. Again, the clown stood in the center of the room, surrounded by broken toys, old furniture, and dusty boxes. In his hand, he held a balloon, red, perfectly round, glowing slightly in the dark. He extended it toward me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then he spoke. "Do you remember me?" His voice was different now. Familiar. It echoed with memories I had buried. "You left me here." And then it all came rushing back. When I was 7, I had an imaginary friend. A clown. My parents thought it was cute at first. They even encouraged it. But things changed. I started hurting myself. Saying things I didn't understand. Speaking in a voice that wasn't mine. My parents brought in priests, psychologists. Nothing worked. Until one night, I locked the clown in the basement. In my mind, that's what I did. I imagined it over and over until he stopped appearing. I grew up. I forgot. But he didn't. He never left. The balloon popped. A sharp, deafening crack. I screamed and stumbled backward, hitting the stairs. The clown's grin widened. He took a step forward. "Come play with me, one last time." I turned and ran. Up the stairs, through the house, out into the rain. It didn't stop. Not even when I reached the tree line. Not even when I tripped and fell and tore open my hands on the gravel. Behind me, laughter echoed through the trees. I don't remember how long I ran. Hours. Maybe all night. The storm eventually cleared. Dawn broke. I found myself at the edge of town. The gas station, lights on, people inside. Safe, or so I thought. It's been 3 days. I haven't slept. Every time I close my eyes, I see him. He's getting closer. The shadows in my room twitch. The laughter returns every night at midnight. And now, as I write this, I hear it again. Knock, knock. This time it's at my window. I'm staying in a cheap motel now. Everything from the house, my things, my memories, I left behind. I don't even know what I told the police. They asked about break-ins, drugs, delusions. I lied, said I was under stress, insomnia. They nodded politely, but I saw the doubt in their eyes. No one believes in haunted clowns. Imaginary friends don't hold grudges. But I know what I saw. He followed me here. It started with the flickering lights in the motel room. Then the bathroom mirror fogged up on its own. The message appeared in the condensation. Time's almost up. I screamed, ran outside, banged on the manager's door until he called the police again. They found nothing. No message, no trace of entry, just me shaking, sweating, sobbing. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom. I didn't dare sleep. I stared at the door for hours, a knife clutched in my hand. At 3:03 a.m., the laughter started. Not from the outside, from under the bed. I dropped the knife. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just listened as it slowly turned into humming, a twisted lullaby I half remembered from childhood. When dawn broke, I checked under the bed. Nothing. No sign of anything, but the carpet smelled like candy and rot. I left that day, drove for miles town to town. Every time I stopped, he found me. A balloon tied to my car's antenna, makeup smeared on a bathroom mirror. Sometimes just a whisper behind my ear. Knock, knock. I don't know what he wants. But I remember something now. Something I'd forgotten. That last night before I locked him away, there was a deal. He told me if I left him, he'd come back. He'd wait until I forgot him, and then he'd make me remember. I think he feeds on that. The forgetting, the remembering, the fear. Last night I tried something. I drove back to the house, back to the basement. It was empty, dusty, silent. For a moment I thought maybe it was over. Maybe he had moved on. Then I saw it, carved into the concrete wall in letters as tall as me. You came back, now you stay. And behind me, the door slammed shut. I'm not sure how long I've been down here. The light bulb above flickers dimly, like it's on its last breath. Time doesn't work right in this place. I think he's playing with me. There are new toys in the basement now. Ones I don't recognize. Stuffed animals with button eyes torn off, jack-in-the-boxes that crank by themselves. And mirrors, so many mirrors. In each one, I see a slightly different version of me. Some smiling, some screaming. He visits at night, or what feels like night. Sometimes he just watches. Other times he whispers things. Things about my childhood, my parents, what they really saw when they looked at me. He says I was broken from the beginning, that he's not imaginary, that he's the real one, and I'm the fiction. I don't want to believe it, but I've started to forget who I am. My name, my birthday, it all feels like pieces of someone else's life. Yesterday, if you can call it that, he handed me a mirror. Look, he said, grinning wide. See what you are now. I did, and I saw the clown. Not him. Me, makeup cracked, teeth yellow, eyes wide and red-ringed. I dropped the mirror and screamed. He just laughed. You made me, he said. Now I'll make you. And I understand now. He doesn't want to kill me. He wants to become me. One last game. One last trick. And then he'll walk out of here in my skin, wearing my memories, leaving me behind in the dark. But I won't let him. I won't. I found the old furnace in the corner of the basement. I've dragged everything flammable I can into a pile, wood, cloth, even old toys. I'll light it soon. When he comes next, I'll be waiting. And if I go down, I'm taking him with me. He may have started in my mind, but he ends in fire. If someone finds this, if there's anything left, remember this. Don't play with things that wear other people's faces. Don't make friends with things that laugh when you cry. And whatever you do, don't answer the knock. Knock, knock. The echoes of Windmere High. I don't believe in ghosts. At least I didn't until I went back to Windmere. It's been nearly 2 decades since I last walked those long, dimly lit corridors, their wooden floors always groaning beneath the weight of secrets. Windmere High was closed in 2006, not long after my class graduated. They said it was funding, structural issues, mold. But everyone who walked those halls knew it wasn't about the budget. Something was wrong with that place. It started small when we were students. Whispers in the stairwells when no one else was around. Lights that flickered in patterns too deliberate to be electrical faults. And then came the disappearances, first a janitor, then a substitute teacher. We were told they moved away suddenly, but nobody saw them leave. Not even the bus drivers. I never thought I'd go back. But last month, I got the letter. It was handwritten in tight cursive on yellowing paper. No return address, no stamp. You need to come back. They're still here. And they remember you. Inside the envelope was a tarnished key and a Polaroid of Windmere's front entrance. Just as I remembered it, ivy-choked walls, grimy windows, and that one window on the 3rd floor where the curtains were always drawn, even when the rest of the building was abandoned. I should have burned the letter, thrown the key into the river. But here I am. The air was thick with mildew and rain when I parked my car outside the rusted iron gates. The town around Windmere had decayed in its own right, storefronts boarded up, lamp posts tilted like weary sentinels, and not a soul in sight. Even the birds seemed to avoid this place. I walked the half-mile up the path, the school looming larger with every step. The building's Gothic silhouette sliced through the mist like a blade. The double doors were locked, of course, but the key fit into a side entrance near the old cafeteria, where we used to dare each other to eat the mystery meat. The lock clicked open with a sound too loud, like it hadn't been used in years. I stepped inside. It was exactly as I remembered it, and exactly not. The air inside the building was still, but heavy, like the lungs of the place hadn't exhaled in years. Dust coated every surface like snow. The smell was overpowering, mold, rotting paper, something coppery beneath it all. My flashlight's beam bounced off broken glass and old trophies in their cases, their plaques long since rusted. And then I heard it, a bell, the school bell. It echoed through the halls as clearly as if classes were still in session. 3 sharp rings pause, one long one, just like they used to do before fire drills. But there were no fire drills anymore, and the power had been cut for years. I should have left right then, but I didn't. The hallways seemed longer than I remembered, like the school had grown in my absence. I passed faded murals I vaguely recalled painting during Spirit Week, now peeling, warped into grotesque expressions by moisture and time. The sound of the bell still echoed in my ears, even though it had stopped. As I moved deeper into the school, my flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then it went out. I stood there in the dark, breath shallow, the silence pressing against my skull. I slapped the flashlight. Nothing. I reached for my phone to use its light, only to find the battery had drained. Dead, even though it was full when I left the car. And that's when I heard the whisper. Mark. It came from behind me, soft as silk, cold as ice. I spun, heart thudding in my chest. No one. Just the corridor. But something had changed. The lockers were closed now, all of them. I was sure several were ajar when I passed by, and the mural to my right. I swear the painted student in the middle had moved his eyes. He was watching me. Mark, it came again, a little louder, a little closer, and I recognized the voice, Claire Redmond. Claire had vanished the fall of senior year. No note. No body. No funeral. Her locker was left untouched for months before the faculty removed it like she never existed. My throat tightened. "Claire?" I said, my voice sounding alien in the echoing dark. Silence, then footsteps, not mine. Deliberate, echoing, coming from the third floor. I don't know what made me go toward them. Maybe it was guilt. Claire and I weren't close, but I remembered her well, bright eyes, always scribbling poems in the margins of her math homework. I remember the day she disappeared. I was the last person to talk to her. She said, "They're watching me." I laughed, told her to stop being so weird. Then she walked away and never came back. I climbed the stairs, each step groaning under my weight like a scream. The third floor had always felt colder than the rest of the building. There was something about it, the way the air tasted metallic, the way the windows never quite let in light. In that window, the one that was always covered, it wasn't covered anymore. The curtain was open, and someone was standing there. The figure at the window didn't move. From where I stood at the top of the staircase, I could just make out the outline of a girl, slim frame, long hair, pale against the shifting shadows outside. My flashlight still wouldn't work, and my phone remained cold and lifeless in my pocket, as if the very building were feeding on its battery. The corridor stretched ahead of me, impossibly long. My footsteps barely made a sound now, as if the floor had grown thick with some unseen layer of silence. The girl at the window didn't turn around, but as I drew closer, I felt a pressure in my ears, like standing at the bottom of a pool. My breath fogged in the air. It was that cold now. And then she spoke, but her lips didn't move. "You remember me now." The words were in my mind, not heard exactly, but pressed there like fingerprints on glass. My chest tightened. "Claire," I whispered, voice cracking. Still, she didn't turn. I reached out, fingers trembling, and touched her shoulder. Nothing. She vanished, dissolved into mist, like a breath exhaled. I recoiled, stumbling back into the old science lab door, which creaked open behind me. What I saw inside made me stop breathing. The classroom was untouched by time. Desks aligned perfectly, not a speck of dust. The whiteboard still bore the remnants of a lesson on covalent bonds, half erased. Sunlight, impossible sunlight, poured through the windows. I could hear students murmuring, chairs squeaking, paper rustling, but the room was empty. I stepped inside, my shoes echoing far louder than they should. As soon as I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. The sunlight vanished. I was plunged into darkness, and then they came in, silhouettes. Students, but wrong. Their movements were jerky, out of sync, like old film footage. Their faces were blurred, mouths open too wide, eyes black voids that didn't reflect light. They took their seats silently, all facing forward, their gaze fixed on the chalkboard. A figure entered next, tall, wearing a teacher's suit that flickered in and out of existence. His face was a smear, like something had tried to erase him from memory. He began to write on the board, not with chalk, with his finger, which bled thick black ink that hissed as it hit the surface. "We don't forget," the class chanted it in unison, flat, toneless voices, over and over. "We don't forget, we don't forget, we don't forget." I backed toward the door, heart hammering. It wouldn't budge. I clawed at the handle, useless, my breath coming in sharp bursts. Suddenly, silence. I turned around. They were all staring at me now, and their mouths, God, their mouths, opened wider. Wider than any human jaw could. Blackness poured out like smoke. The room tilted. I fell down. Not onto the floor, but into it. Through it. I hit the tiles of the gymnasium with a sickening thud. For a moment, all was still. Then the lights buzzed on, those old mercury lights, flickering like lightning bugs on their last breath. The gym was deserted, save for a line of folding chairs set in the center of the basketball court. Each one had a photo taped to the back, and I recognized the faces. Claire Redmond, Mr. Callahan, the janitor, Ms. Dietz, the sub, Evan Masters, the boy who supposedly transferred sophomore year. All the people who had vanished. At the far end of the chairs was one last photo. Mine. I walked up to it in a trance. The photo was recent. It had to have been taken today. My face was the same jacket, the same tired eyes. Written in black marker beneath the photo. Late, but expected. My knees buckled. I collapsed into the chair behind the photo. The lights dimmed one by one, until only a spotlight remained centered on me. Footsteps echoed from the bleachers. A slow, deliberate clap. A woman stepped into the light. She wore the school's old guidance counselor badge. Though her face was wrong, her mouth was stitched shut, but the skin around the threads trembled like she was laughing anyway. She raised a bony hand and pointed at me. Then I heard the sound I've dreaded since I was 17. The locker slam. Bang, 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 growing closer. The walls began to bleed words, sentences I had scribbled in yearbooks and notes passed in class. It's just your imagination, Claire. Don't be paranoid. You're not haunted, you're just weird. I was surrounded by my own dismissals, my cowardice. Every time I had turned away instead of helped. Every joke, every eye roll, the lights went out. And a voice, not Claire's, but something deeper, older, beneath the building, spoke into my bones. She gave us your name, I screamed. I screamed until my throat tore. And then I woke up. I was lying on the floor of the old nurse's office, drenched in cold sweat. My fingers dug into the cracked linoleum, and for a terrifying moment, I wasn't sure if I was still dreaming. The lights were off. The cabinets were open. Medical charts fluttered gently as if stirred by a breeze that didn't exist. My heart thudded unevenly as I pulled myself up. A deep ache throbbed in my left arm, where I must have landed on something hard. I checked the door, still unlocked. Had it really happened? The chanting, the black-eyed students, Claire at the window, or had my mind turned against me? The air tasted like old metal and rot. I stepped into the hallway and found the school changed again. The walls were lined with old yearbook photos, but the faces were scratched out. Every single one. Some had black ink dripping from the eye sockets. Others had their names circled in red, some violently crossed out beneath. I checked one at random. Redmond Claire. Drama Club, missing 2005. Next to it, Michael's mark, present. My breath caught. There was a photo of me, not from high school, but from this very night. My image, holding the flashlight, caught in a corner of the stairwell. I had never taken this photo. Someone else had. That's when the air changed. Heavy again. Pressing. And I realized I was not alone in the hall. A tall figure stood at the far end, motionless, just barely visible in the flickering overhead light. I squinted through the gloom. Its arms were too long. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, like a puppet suspended by a single thread. It didn't move, but I felt its gaze like ice water pouring down my spine. I backed away slowly. My shoes crunched over broken glass, and the sound echoed like a gunshot. The figure jerked. It took a step. Another. Its joints snapped as it moved, pop, 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 like dislocated limbs forcing themselves to function. Turned and ran, not caring where I was going, just away. I darted down the staircase, slipping on the last step, hitting the floor hard. My flashlight flared to life, suddenly and violently, as if sensing the danger. The hallway was filled with lockers, some open, others now. Breathing, in and out, slow, like they were lungs waiting. I turned the beam behind me. The figure was still coming. Closer now. Closer. I dove through the library doors and slammed them shut behind me, shoving a chair under the handle. My breath came in ragged gasps, silence. Books lined the walls in perfect rows, untouched by decay. The air was thick with paper and time. My flashlight caught movement, pages rustling, turning on their own. A book fell from the shelf and landed at my feet. Student Records, 1993-2006. I opened it with shaking hands. The entries were orderly until 2004. Then the names began to blur, handwriting spiraled, and entire years were blacked out. Then an entry with my name, Mark Michaels. Susceptible, witness, failed test, to be returned. Below that, in red ink, pending integration. I felt something behind me before I heard it. A warmth. A presence, like someone breathing just behind my ear. I turned slowly. Claire stood there. Or what was left of her. Her eyes were hollow, ringed in gray. Her skin seemed stretched, translucent, like something beneath was trying to push through. She wore the same outfit from the day she vanished. A green hoodie with torn sleeves and jeans stained dark at the cuffs. Mark, she said, her voice layered, hers, and something else, like multiple voices all speaking through her mouth. You shouldn't have come. You called me, I stammered. The letter, the picture. Her head tilted. Not me, them, I warned you before. You laughed. Guilt stung like acid. I didn't know. I didn't understand. They made me part of this place, she said. I belong to it now, we all do. Her face twitched. For a moment, I saw her, the real Claire, fighting through whatever was using her like a mask. There's still time, she whispered, but not much. You need to find the room of echoes. The what? She pressed something into my hand. A fragment of an old map, charred at the edges, corners smeared with what looked like dried blood. In faded ink, a section was circled deep in the underbelly of the school. Boiler room sublevel, RE written beside it. The room of echoes, she said again. It's the only place they don't control entirely. There are pieces of us in there, pieces we left behind. That's where it began. Then her eyes rolled back, and her body convulsed. A screech burst from her throat, inhuman, piercing. Her mouth stretched impossibly wide. I ran. The library door splintered as I pushed through, the figure from before now crawling on the ceiling, following. The hallway twisted around me, no longer obeying geometry or logic. I turned left and found myself in the old music room. Instruments floated midair, playing themselves, a funeral march composed of groans and weeping strings. The air whispered, integration. Stay. You were always one of us. I screamed back, no. I sprinted down the west wing, past classrooms where shadows watched from behind shattered windows. Blood began seeping from under the doors, spelling words in cursive. The bell rings for you now. I found the old basement stairwell and forced the door open. The smell hit me instantly. Rot, grist, wet stone. I took the first step down. Claire's voice echoed in my mind. The room of echoes. It's where it began. It's where it ends. The basement staircase was narrow, steep, and cruelly cold. My flashlight dimmed again, flickering like a candle in wind that didn't blow. Every step creaked. The sound swallowed too quickly, like the air down here didn't want to carry sound, like it didn't want anyone to know I was here. The map Claire had given me was trembling in my hand. Or maybe that was just me. The red circled destination, boiler room sublevel, room of echoes, seemed farther than it should be, buried beneath a building that had no right being this deep. Halfway down, the staircase changed. The concrete walls gave way to something older, rough stone, carved with strange symbols. Some of them were familiar, drawn in chalk in the bathrooms by kids daring each other to summon spirits. Others pulsed faintly with a light that didn't come from my flashlight. The air grew thick with pressure. Not just heavy, it pressed inward, squeezing my chest like unseen hands. I reached the bottom, and the flashlight's beam landed on an iron door. No handle, no keyhole, just a hole in the center, perfectly round, about the size of a coin or an eye. It didn't hesitate. I pressed the key from the envelope, the one I received with the letter, into the hole. It slid in, and the door groaned open. The room of echoes was not what I expected. It was a cavern, wide and impossible, built beneath the school like a festering root system. The walls were made of lockers, hundreds, maybe thousands, welded together, each one whispering. Literally whispering. I stepped in, and the voices began to rise, layered, overlapping, some crying, some screaming, others chanting. "Don't leave me. It was supposed to be safe. Help me. They are coming." The school was hungry. I turned in place. Each locker had a nameplate, the same names from the hallway. All the missing: Claire, Evan, Mr. Callahan, and others, dozens I didn't recognize. And there was one locker left open. Mina. Inside was my old yearbook photo, my childhood report cards, a strip of paper torn from a journal I forgot I even kept. Sometimes I think the school is watching us. Below it, a mirror, cracked, dusty, with my reflection flickering like static. I reached for it, and a hand grabbed mine. Cold, bone-thin, too many fingers. I yanked free and stumbled backward, flashlight swinging. The figure was here. Up close now, I saw what it really was, or maybe what it had become. The twisted mockery of a teacher. Its head bore the vague shape of a man, but its face was a swirling void, as if the memory of who it once was had been ripped out. It raised one arm, and from its mouth, if that's what it was, came a cascade of children's voices. Attendance must be complete. Lockers all around me slammed open, spilling fog. From within crawled the others, the lost students, their eyes blank, their mouths stitched or wide open in silent screams. They were puppets now, and they moved with mechanical grace, surrounding me. Claire's voice filled the room, cutting through the chaos. "Break the chain, Mark." The mirror. I turned back to my locker. The reflection inside had changed. It no longer showed me. It showed the classroom, our old classroom, room 307. Except in the reflection, it was pristine. Lit alive, students sat at desks. Claire was there, laughing. I saw myself too, 17 again. Staring out the window. It wasn't a memory. It was a loop. This place wasn't just feeding off the past. It was trapping it, repeating it, reliving it, keeping those who had vanished in endless loops of their final moments. A prison built of regret, a school of ghosts. "Break it, Mark." Claire again, shouting now, her voice echoing from all directions. I didn't know what else to do. I took the flashlight and smashed the mirror. Glass shattered, and the whispering stopped. For a breathless second, the room of echoes fell into perfect, suffocating silence. Then screaming, not human. The figure reeled backward, shrieking like a siren. Its limbs flailed wildly, smoke billowing from the hole where its face should have been. The lockers around it burst open, expelling a howling wind that sucked the smoke into them one by one. The fog lifted, the voices faded. And then there was Claire, clear, solid, herself. She stood near my locker, tears in her eyes. She smiled. "You did it," she whispered. I shook my head. "I don't understand. What happens now?" She looked up at the ceiling of lockers stretching into darkness. "It's collapsing. The illusion. The loops. We're not free, but the hold is breaking. You broke it." I took a step forward, wanting to hug her, to hold her hand, but she shook her head. "I can't leave," she said, and the sadness in her voice broke me. "None of us can, but we're not trapped anymore, not like before." She reached into the locker beside her and pulled out a piece of chalk. It glowed faintly. "Draw a door," she said. "Anywhere. It'll know where to take you." My hand trembled as I took the chalk. On the wall of lockers behind me, I drew a crude door, a rectangle with a handle. The chalk left a trail of light like a sparkler on the 4th of July. The moment I finished, the door clicked open. Warm air flowed through, a summer breeze, distant traffic, the smell of outside. Claire smiled again. You came back when no one else did. That matters. I stepped through, and everything behind me went dark. I stepped out into the night. The wind was warm, the moon high. Behind me, Windmere High loomed silent and dark, just a building again. Its windows no longer pulsed with strange light. The air no longer buzzed. The screams, the whispers, the distorted memories, all gone. I turned around, half expecting the chalk door to vanish. It didn't. It simply closed. The quiet click, like a bell being placed gently back on a shelf. And it stayed. I stared at the building for a long time. It looked exactly the same as when I arrived. The bricks were still cracked, the sign still broken, the entrance still sealed with plywood. Nothing to show the hell I'd just escaped. Nothing to prove what had happened. But I felt different, older, hollowed out. Haunted, I started walking. My car was still there, parked crooked on the cracked pavement of the teacher's lot. I climbed in, turned the key, and this time, the engine started without complaint. My phone even buzzed to life, flooding with missed calls and messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. But the strangest thing, my text messages from earlier tonight were gone. The ones from the unknown number. No letter in the glove box, no photograph, not even the envelope. I looked at my hand. The chalk dust was still there. So was the cut on my palm where I'd scraped the mirror. I sat there for a while, trying to decide what to do next. Tell someone, a therapist, the police. What would I even say? That I'd gone back to my old high school and freed a legion of forgotten souls from a psychic memory loop, buried beneath a school that wanted to remember itself into eternity. Right, instead I drove. Miles passed in silence. I barely remember the highway. Just the hum of the tires and the ghosts trailing behind me like a fog I couldn't shake. Claire's voice still echoed in my mind. So did the other voices, so many of them. A whole generation lost in the cracks. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat in my apartment until the sun came up, watching it light the world like nothing had changed. But something had, and I wasn't the only one who knew. A week later, a story hit the local news. Construction crew discovers massive catacombs beneath abandoned high school. They called it a structural fluke, blamed it on outdated architectural records. Claimed no bodies were found, no strange artifacts. Just rusted lockers, old uniforms, a few forgotten documents. They didn't mention the chalk drawings on the walls. They didn't explain why every security camera on site failed the moment they stepped inside. And they didn't know what I knew. That Windmere High had remembered itself into something more than a building. That the people lost in it weren't just missing, they were preserved. Replayed, echoed until now. The dreams started soon after. First subtle, just the sound of bells or a hallway with no end. Then louder, clearer. I'd wake up with ink on my hands or the smell of old books in my hair. Sometimes I hear Claire. Sometimes I hear them all. One night, I dreamt I was back in the room of echoes. Only this time, the lockers were gone. Replaced with doors. Hundreds of them. Thousands, each glowing faintly. Each waiting. And in the dream, I felt it. Something new had begun. Something was opening. 1 year later, I returned to Windmere only once more. This time, I don't go alone. I bring the yearbook. The one from 2004, the last one before everything started unraveling. I carry it like a Bible, reverent, because now I understand what it really is. A registry of the remembered. A last breath of those who weren't supposed to disappear. The school is fenced off now, but it's easy enough to slip through the back. The main building remains untouched. The chalk door on the basement wall is gone, but the foundation still hums faintly when I touch it, like it's waiting. I open the yearbook and tear out one page. Claire's, her photo, her bio, her handwriting. I tuck it into the crack between two bricks. Thank you, a gravestone, and maybe a promise. Then I walk away. This time I don't look back. Epilogue: every now and then I get letters. No return address. No stamps, just left at my door or slipped through my mail slot. Each one contains a photograph of someone who once attended Windmere High and was forgotten. Each time there's a name and a date, and beneath it the same 3 words: don't forget us. And I won't. I can't, because I've seen what happens when we let memory rot. When we treat people like footnotes in our own story. When we bury trauma in the foundation and hope the building stands anyway. The echoes don't fade, they build. They gather, they wait, and sometimes they ring the bell themselves. The air was too still that night, the kind of quiet that never lasts long without something rupturing it. I drove through the rust-colored gates of Ashridge Hospital just before midnight, the old building looming like a mausoleum bathed in moonlight. I hadn't planned on coming back. No one ever really did. But here I was. Ashridge had shut its doors years ago after a string of inexplicable deaths and disappearances. It was supposed to be demolished, but funding fell through, or maybe something else stopped them. Locals still swore they heard things coming from the building at night. I never believed in ghosts, but I believed in memories, and mine were tangled in the dark halls of Ashridge like ivy. I parked beside what was once the ambulance bay. The exterior lights were long dead, and the windows were dark. But something pulled me in, a gravity I couldn't fight. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was insanity. I had to see it for myself. I had to know if she was still here. The front doors opened easier than they should have, groaning like something trying to wake up. Inside, the stench of mildew and rot clung to the air. The lobby looked untouched since the evacuation, wheelchairs upturned, papers strewn, and a child's doll abandoned near the front desk. My flashlight flickered, casting long shadows that danced across the faded walls. You came back. The whisper was soft, feminine. But no one was there. I froze, heartbeat thundering in my ears. I told myself it was the wind. I kept moving. The corridor stretched into darkness, lined with doors to old patient rooms. Room 207, that was hers. I wasn't sure why I remembered the number so clearly, but it pulsed in my head like a mantra. I passed rooms with numbers etched in rust, graffiti scrawled over peeling paint, and signs dangling half off their hinges. Every step brought back a fragment, a scream, a sob, the beeping of machines. I reached the stairwell. The metal railing was icy cold, and the stairs groaned under my weight. I paused halfway up, the air growing thicker. Then, from the floor above, I heard something dragging across linoleum. Something heavy, something wet. I turned off the flashlight. Whatever was up there had no reason to know I was coming. Yet, as I stood in the darkness, holding my breath, I heard the dragging stop. Silence followed. Then slow, deliberate footsteps began to descend. My hands trembled. I backed away, step by step, until my heel caught on the edge of a stair. I stumbled, the flashlight tumbling from my grip and clattering to the bottom. In the brief flicker of its dying light, I saw something. A figure, emaciated, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut, and then gone. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the second floor, my lungs aching. The hallway greeted me with the smell of antiseptic, over decay. Broken fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Room 207 waited at the far end, the door barely ajar. I approached slowly, each footstep feeling like a betrayal. My hand brushed against the wall, guiding me, grounding me. Every few feet, I saw words scrawled in what looked like blood. Help her. Still here. Don't forget. I didn't want to remember. I pushed the door open. Room 207 was untouched. The bed was still made, the IV still dangling like a noose from its stand. On the windowsill, a wilted rose sat in a vase of stagnant water. Her diary lay on the nightstand. I hadn't seen it in years. I picked it up. The leather was cracked. The pages yellowed. I flipped through it with trembling fingers, the inked words like ghosts from the past. Then I reached the final entry. He said he could make the pain go away. But he lied. I hear them screaming. I see them in the walls. If anyone finds this, don't trust Dr. Halverson. He feeds them. A sound behind me. Turned. The bed was occupied. She lay there, pale and unmoving, eyes wide open. But it wasn't her. Not anymore. Her mouth parted, and a black, viscous fluid trickled out. Her eyes followed me. I never left, she rasped. The lights died. Something grabbed me from behind, cold, clawed, wet. I struggled, kicked, thrashed. The grip was iron. I was dragged from the room, down the hall, back toward the stairs. Darkness swallowed everything. I woke up in a different room, strapped to a gurney. Monitors beeped around me. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. Shadows danced in the corners. Dr. Halverson stood above me, his face twisted in a smile too wide, his eyes too black. "You're going to help us now," he said. I screamed. No one came. Time slipped. I don't know how long I was strapped there. Sometimes the walls whispered. Sometimes they screamed. And sometimes she came. Her face was always wet with black tears. Her voice like broken glass. "Find the red door," she would say. "That's where he keeps them." The lights overhead strobed as if reacting to her. When she left, they dimmed and silence fell again. But the message etched itself in my mind. Find the red door. I waited. For hours. Days. Eventually, someone made a mistake. The strap left too loose. A door left slightly open. I escaped. The hospital changed while I was strapped down. Corridors that once led to patient rooms now spiraled into depths that shouldn't exist. Elevators went sideways. Gravity bent at angles. Screams echoed through vents. The building was alive. But I remembered the message. Find the red door. I wandered, barefoot and shivering, through corridors bathed in flickering light. I passed rooms filled with water, with smoke, with whispers. I passed a nursery where mechanical cribs rocked themselves, a morgue where the bodies still breathed. I passed an operating theater where doctors with no faces performed surgery on shadows. And then I saw it, a red door, at the end of a long hall lined with mirrors that showed not me, but things that wore my face. I opened it, and I understood. Beneath the hospital was something ancient, not built by men. A labyrinth of meat and machinery. The walls pulsed with veins. The floor was slick with blood. Lights dangled like entrails. In the center was a throne made of bone and surgical steel, and Dr. Halverson sat on it. He wasn't human anymore. "You were always part of this," he said, his voice echoing with many mouths. "She called you, and you answered." Then I saw her, strapped to a table of glass, her eyes pleading. Still alive, still waiting. I ran to her, but the floor opened beneath me. I fell into darkness filled with teeth. I awoke again, same gurney, same blinking machines. But something had changed. There was a mirror now. In the reflection, it wasn't me. It was Halverson, smiling. I smashed the mirror. Blood poured from the cracks, leaking into the floor. The walls moaned. Then I heard her again, whispering, begging. I fled down the corridors again, retracing paths that should have been impossible. The hospital began to resist. Doors slammed shut ahead of me. The lights flickered in waves, strobing like a heartbeat. The deeper I went, the more the air thickened, as if I were wading through fog made of flesh. Finally, I reached her. She was alone now. No restraints. No IVs. just sitting on the floor beneath a dying light. "You came back," she said, smiling softly. "I'm here to take you out," I said, reaching for her. "You can't," she replied, looking down. "You brought it with you." The hospital began to scream. Black tendrils shot from the walls, encircling her, lifting her into the air. I lunged, grabbing her hand. The moment we touched, everything changed. I saw it all. The rituals Halverson performed. The patients turned to offerings. The void beneath Ashridge that demanded sacrifice. And me, always me, watching, helping, becoming. I remembered now. I wasn't just a visitor. I was the first patient, the prototype. Everything I had seen, the horror, the torment, it was my own mind reflected through this place. Halvorsen hadn't lead. He had made the pain go away by giving it form, by feeding it, by letting it grow. I had never left Ashridge. The hospital wasn't haunted. It was me. And as I looked at her, my sister, I saw her begin to fade. Her face twisted in sorrow, not fear. "I waited," she whispered, dissolving into ash. "But you never really came back." Darkness claimed her, and I was alone. The red door closed. Now I sit on the throne. The screams keep me company. The whispers soothe me. And when the front doors groan open again, when new footsteps echo in the lobby, I smile. Because someone has come to visit Ashridge. In the hospital, as always, hungry. It started with a longing. Not for someone or something tangible, but for absence. A craving for silence, for isolation. Not peace, but void. I told myself I needed time alone to finish my manuscript. That was the excuse I gave friends, family, my editor. They nodded, concerned but understanding, and I left. The cabin was old. My grandfather built it with his hands before I was born. It creaked, breathed even, and when the wind pushed through the pine trees like invisible hands combing tangled hair, the cabin responded with groans and sighs. It had no internet, no cell signal, and no neighbors for miles. Perfect. The first 3 days were productive. I wrote furiously, possessed by that rare rhythm when the words flow like blood through an open vein. Coffee, silence, the tap-tap of keys, the scuffle of mice in the attic. I didn't mind the mice. They were a reminder that I wasn't completely alone. But the forest doesn't just let you live in it. It absorbs you. On the 4th day, I woke to silence. Real silence, no wind, no birds, no mice, not even the trees creaked. I stepped outside. The world had paused. Even the clouds hovered motionless. I remember calling out just to hear something. "Hello." The sound felt wrong. Flat, immediate, as if it hadn't traveled at all. It dropped dead at my feet. I laughed nervously and went back inside. But something followed me in, or perhaps something had always been there. It began with the mirrors. I caught glimpses of movement, not when I looked directly, but always in the periphery. A flicker behind my shoulder. I'd spin around. Nothing. But my reflection lingered a second too long. Once, it smiled when I didn't. Then came the dreams or memories. I couldn't tell. I would see myself standing in the forest, staring at the cabin from between the trees. Watching, waiting. In the dreams, I never blinked. My skin looked pale, almost gray. I stopped sleeping. That's when the loneliness changed. It wasn't the absence of people. It was the awareness of something else. A presence in the absence. I started talking to it. At first, just mutters, "You again," or "I know you're there." Then full conversations. "Why are you watching me?" Silence. "What do you want?" Still silence. But in that silence, I found responses. Not words, impressions, guilt, despair. A heavy ache that didn't belong to me, but settled in my chest like a second heart. I remembered things I'd forgotten, faces I hadn't seen in years, voices I thought I'd lost. My mother's laugh, my brother's scream. There's a rot that comes with loneliness. It decays memory, identity. I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize the face. Not because it had changed, but because it was utterly, completely alien. a stranger wearing my features, eyes that knew too much, a mouth that hadn't smiled in centuries. The manuscript fell apart. The words grew erratic. Symbols replaced letters. Pages filled with drawings, trees, always trees, but twisted, gnarled, forming shapes that almost resembled people. One sketch showed the cabin itself, but the windows had eyes, the chimney a mouth, and the forest behind it opened like a maw. By the second week, time lost meaning. I'd find myself outside without knowing how I got there. Once I woke up with pine needles in my mouth. Another time I was kneeling in the clearing with my arms buried elbow deep in cold, wet earth. The mice never returned. I heard footsteps at night, slow, deliberate, not outside but in the attic. The creaking was rhythmic. I began to count them. 13 steps. Then pause, then 13 again. Tried to leave. The car wouldn't start. The road out was gone. I mean that literally. Where there was once a dirt path, there was now only forest. Trees so close together they breathed on each other. I walked for hours, always returned to the cabin. Something was changing me. One night, I found writing on the walls. My handwriting. But I didn't remember doing it. Phrases repeated over and over. I am not alone. The silence sees. I remember you. And one, written in something darker than ink. You never left. I started hearing my own voice outside my body. It whispered from under the bed, behind doors, inside closets. Mocking, pleading, sobbing. Always a version of me I didn't want to acknowledge. I found a photograph in the attic. Black and white. It showed the cabin older, surrounded by fog. A figure stood in the window. I flipped it over. Taken June 14th, 1932. Charles before he vanished. My grandfather's name. I looked again at the figure in the window. It was me. The transformation completed slowly. My skin dried, eyes dulled, speech thinned into murmurs. But my thoughts, they sharpened. I knew things. The number of pine needles in a square foot. The sound the earth makes when it's grieving. The names of each wind. I became part of the silence. Now I don't write with hands. I write with echoes. I speak through creaking floorboards and drafty windows. I see through cracks in the walls. I remember everyone who's ever stepped foot inside. And I'm still waiting, not to be rescued, to be remembered. The weeks bleed into each other. I no longer mark days, but changes. How the trees inch closer when I blink. How my reflection no longer mimics me, but acts on its own, sometimes mouthing words I haven't spoken yet. I try burning the pages I've written. The fire won't take them. The flames recoil like they fear the ink, so I bury them instead. Each page has a heartbeat when I touch it. A slow, deliberate thump that pulses into my palm. I don't know if I'm creating something or revealing it. I sleep in short, stuttering intervals. When I wake, I'm never sure if I'm alone. Once I found my boots by the door, soaked in mud, but I hadn't left. Or I didn't remember. Or it wasn't me who wore them. The thing in the attic comes down now. It walks openly. I hear it pacing behind me, always just behind. Sometimes I catch it in the glass of a darkened window, a tall figure, blurred like breath on glass, its limbs slightly too long, head tilted as if listening to a sound I can't hear. I spoke to it. "Are you me?" It paused, then nodded, or perhaps it just tilted. I can no longer tell. The forest grows inside the house. Pine needles in the sink. Bark curling up from the floorboards. Sap weeping from the walls. The air smells sweet and sharp like Christmas, but sickly like a memory decayed. I find animals I don't recognize. Not quite squirrels, not quite birds. Their eyes are wrong. Too human. They don't blink. One night, the power returned. I didn't know how. Every bulb in the house burst the instant it flickered on. Then the silence returned, louder than ever. I keep thinking about the phrase, "You never left." Maybe I died here. Maybe I never made it to the cabin at all. Maybe this is some recursive loop of self, some echo chamber where my thoughts spiral into deeper reflections of pain and guilt. I think of my brother, the one I lost in the lake when we were kids. I remember his face as he disappeared beneath the water, the way his eyes locked onto mine until they didn't. Maybe that's why I came here, to disappear too. I wrote his name on the wall. I don't remember doing it, but I wake every morning to see it freshly carved, weeping sap and ink. The cabin is not a place, it's a presence. A keeper of all who tried to leave the world behind. I think it feeds on isolation. It drinks memories, devours echoes. It doesn't want to be empty. It fills itself with pieces of us. One day, someone else will come. They'll say it's to write or to escape. And I'll be waiting, not as myself, but as the whisper in the attic, the reflection that smiles, the flicker behind their shoulder, the creaking floorboard. I'll be the silence, and they won't be alone.